me for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast. I know it's been a busy week so far, so thanks for checking us out. Today we're talking to Sam Ouhaj about his NFL mock draft, the NFC East, what teams will trade up, what teams will trade out, and who will pick a wide receiver this week. All that and more. Here's Sam. All right, on the phone line right now, we have Sam Ouhaj talking to us about the NFC East and his big mock draft, his big board. Sam, let's talk about it. The worst team in the NFC last year was the New York Giants, so they're going to have the highest pick. They picked number 4 in this year's draft. I know we've talked about this guy a lot recently, but I think the Giants are going to pick a linebacker. Isaiah Simmons seems like the type of guy that the Giants might be looking at. What do you have right now when you're looking at your big board with the Giants picking at 4?
I think Gettleman would be an idiot if he doesn't draft Isaiah Simmons after his combine, to be honest with you. In my last mock draft, I had them taking Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle, number 4 overall, because they really do need offensive line help. But, I mean, how do you pass up on a talent like someone as Isaiah Simmons? He's filthy. I mean, he makes plays, and he could solve a lot of problems on their defense.
It doesn't make a ton of sense to me what the Giants have been doing recently. They picked Barkley at 4 a couple years, like 2 years ago. They picked him at 4. They picked a running back. It feels like they need to go back to what makes football right. Like you pick good, offensive linemen and defensive linemen early in drafts, and that's how you kind of build your team. I think Simmons is the perfect type of player to put and fill that role they need at linebacker.
I definitely agree with you. And also, too, the thing is, the Saquon pick is a little bit questionable still. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's really talented, Saquon Barkley, but a good running back is not going to make an average offensive line look good, but a great offensive line is going to make an average running back look like an all-star. So, I mean, it wasn't the smartest pick in the entire world, but, I mean, I get it that they wanted a franchise guy, but think about it like this. By the time the Giants finally get offensive line, Saquon Barkley is already going to have all the hits added up and all the injuries, and hopefully not injuries, but he's going to have a lot of hits added up and a lot of carries, and he's going to be on the decline of his career.
So do we know... Are we willing to make a statement now? We're 2 years into it. Was that a mistake to pick him that early in the draft with other quarterbacks going picked after him? Or do you think it still was the right move for the Giants to ride out Eli these last couple of years?
I think, personally, I'm going to get a lot of hate from my friends and everyone in New York about this, but I don't think it was a great pick, and I think it's fair to say that he isn't the perfect fit for the Giants. Don't get me wrong, great running back. Definitely top 3 probably in the league when healthy, but they're not a good fit with each other, the New York Giants and Saquon Barkley. Like, they can't get in the offensive line. You saw it when they were playing the Jets. The Jets had a great defense this year. I mean, not great, but they had a good defense, held them to 1 rushing yard. And the thing with Saquon Barkley is I feel that a lot of his stats, when you see him rush for all these big yard gains and stuff, is because he has that one run every single game where he rushes for 70 yards. So, I mean, and that's because he does it himself. It's not like his offensive line is blocking for him. It's just that he's so powerful and he's so good that he creates those plays. But if you put Saquon Barkley behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line or the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, I guarantee you he rushes for over 2,000 yards.
I'm still holding out hope for him. I still think that he's one of the most physical, just gifted guys that the NFL's had in the last couple of years. But right now, I'd still take Christian McCaffrey over him for a guy that does essentially the exact same type of thing, but just has a little bit more to work with, be it an offensive line or a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Did you hear that they were possibly considering trading McCaffrey to the Kansas City Chiefs? That was like a small rumor going around.
I hadn't heard that rumor. No, talk me through that. Why does that make sense for the Panthers?
I mean, if you add Christian McCaffrey to that team, they're Super Bowl champs again without any question about it. You had probably the best running back, who was the best running back in the league last year, to the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and they're filthy. And they were saying that it makes sense for the Carolina Panthers because McCaffrey's going to want a lot of money in the upcoming years when his contract is due. And they also are in a rebuild, Carolina, whether they want to admit it or not. We've heard that the Panthers are possibly considering holding out for Trevor Lawrence next year, which I could definitely see happening. But I mean, how could you not do a trade like that? You get a first-round pick, you could definitely get a lot more, and the Chiefs would be willing to do it. They're in a win-now mode, the Kansas City Chiefs, so it doesn't really matter. You got to think about it like this. If you go look at the Yankees when they traded Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs and they got Gleyber Torres back, I mean, yeah, Gleyber Torres is going to be an MVP in the next 2 years, but think about it like this. The Cubs won a World Series for the first time in 108 years. Does it really matter that they made that trade? You know what I'm saying? Like, a trade is a trade at the end of the day if you're winning a championship, so it makes perfect sense.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I think McCaffrey's still pretty young. I still think that Matt Rule needs to have some pieces to work with in Carolina to make his first few years successful, but I am interested in that. That's an interesting trade. So let's move on to your Dallas Cowboys, Sam. Cowboys had a season this year that I think was below expectations, to say the least. They pick at 17. They pick at 17.
I don't know. Yeah, that season. I mean, that's the definition of the Dallas Cowboys, falling right on your face when you have so much momentum. And once again, it came back to haunt them. They started out 3-0. They were killing it. I mean, I get it. They played against the Redskins, the Giants, and the Dolphins. They're not even good teams, and everyone was ready to write them off as Super Bowl champs. That Dak Prescott was MVP of the league, and Zeke Elliott was going to be phenomenal this year, and Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, they all looked filthy, but then they just fell flat on their face, and they lost 3 in a row. And what killed them was the loss to the Jets, which I was at when they. Oh my. Anyway, let me not get sidetracked here. The Cowboys need defensive help. I feel that's was their weak part. Their offense was the number one offense in the NFL this year, and I think that they're going to keep everyone on the offense. And they may even add someone like Des Bryant, which will make them more of a competitive team. I feel that they need a red zone threat that they're lacking. With no offense to Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb, but they're not really the go up and get it wide receiver like Des Bryant was when he was in Dallas. So it makes perfect sense. But I don't know who I want the Cowboys to take, because maybe they go with another wide receiver and Jerry Jeudy, or maybe CeeDee Lamb if he falls, but I don't think either of them are going to fall. But I could definitely see someone like Henry Ruggs falling all the way to the Dallas Cowboys and them selecting it, because the one safety that I like, Antonio Winfield Jr. out of, I don't know what college he's out of. I think it's Minnesota. Yes, it is Minnesota. He's going to be a second-round pick, and he looks like he may go a little bit higher, actually, and the Cowboys may not even be able to land him. But the one position that they've neglected a lot, the Dallas Cowboys, is the safety. And I think this is the year where they draft a safety, but it wouldn't be bad to add another wide receiver if they don't sign Des Bryant.
Xavier McKinney is, of course, the guy that is getting rumored the most that that's probably what the Cowboys are going to pick. But, Sam, I got another question for you. So you talk about the wide receivers. Let's talk about the quarterback room. Dak is still not signed, and there's already rumors that, the aggregators, the people who want to come up with, 24/7 content, the idea of Tom Brady going to the Dallas Cowboys, the door isn't completely shut on that stipulation, that rumor yet. How do you feel right now with your Cowboys being in those rumors?
I think that it's just all for media and all for attention, and I think that whatever you're going to do to get your views up is what you got to do at the end of the day, and it's no disrespect to that, but I think that it's bogus. I mean, you've heard Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones come out and say Dak is their guy, that's who they want to lead the team, and they are pretty close to a deal. I mean, they're starting to get the infrastructure down, because think about it like this. They need to get Dak Prescott signed before the franchise tag period ends on the 14th, because then if they could possibly work on keeping Byron Jones, who they originally thought was going to walk. So if they sign Amari Cooper and Dak, you get to keep Byron Jones. So that's why I think that they're pushing for a deal. But I think Dak deserves a good salary. I think he deserves to make more than Wentz and Goff. He's proved to be better than Wentz and Goff so far throughout their careers in 2016. Because here's the thing, right? Wentz has more talent than Dak, but Dak has been more consistent than Wentz. And Jared Goff is probably, I think I'm ready to label him as a bust. I was ready to label him as a bust last year, and everyone was on the high horse. But I was like, it's all a smoke screen. Sean McVay is an offensive genius. But then look at what happened when they got the film on McVay, and Jared Goff started to go down. I mean, also, too, you get Gurley with knee arthritis, and he starts to go on the decline. Their offensive line is old, so you can't really put it all on Goff. But everyone was ready to hype him up as an MVP candidate, and Jared Goff fell flat on his face. But I think it makes clear sense. I mean, Jared Goff is making $110 million, and he already got $107 million guaranteed. Carson Wentz is making $107, and he's got like $105 million guaranteed. And Russell Wilson makes a lot of money, but Russell Wilson has a Super Bowl to his name. I guess Carson Wentz technically does have a Super Bowl to his name, but I mean, he didn't win it. Nick Foles won the Super Bowl that year. But you get what I'm saying? So I get why he's holding out for the money. And also, too, you got to look at it like this. The cap is just going to keep increasing. And so in a couple of years, we're going to look back on the deal and we're going to be like, well, he's not really making that much anymore. Because look at a great example is Matt Ryan when he signed that $30 million contract after losing the Super Bowl that year. And they were like, wow, look at him. Like he's the highest paid quarterback right now. He's making $30 million a year. Who's going to beat Matt Ryan? And then you see like an average Joe quarterback just overtake it because the cap increases. And now it looks like Matt Ryan is making a poor man's salary with $30 million. So I get it. I get it with the negotiations and the salary cap. I'm not really an expert with all of that, but I get what the Cowboys are trying to do, but they should sign him soon.
I agree. I think that Dak has proven that he could be the type of quarterback that can lead your franchise. The only thing I want to add, though, Sam, is that Wentz has gotten his team to the Super Bowl, gotten them to the playoffs at least, and then Foles, of course, took it and won it. But Goff has played in the Super Bowl as well. Something Dak has not done is played in big games and had big, meaningful games in his career. And if he has played in those games, he's come up short. That's the only thing that separates Wentz and Goff and then Dak.
I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of a Cowboys bias, but I wouldn't necessarily say that Dak has fell on his face when he's come to play in those big games in the playoffs. I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers in 2016, and they lost on a last-second field goal, so you can't really blame him for that one. And then when they lost he showed out against the Seahawks, and they won. And then when he went out against the Rams, the defense absolutely lost what they were doing, and they let C.J. Anderson, who isn't even in the league anymore, and Todd Gurley, who's on the decline, run for over 100 yards combined each. So, I mean, you can't really put the blame on him, but he shows up in certain big moments. But this year, when they needed him most, he wasn't there.
That's fair.
I guess it goes both ways.
All right, let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. They're picking number 21 in this draft. This is another one of those teams that I personally think will trade out of that. I think they might either trade out of their first-round pick completely and try to go package a deal and get some picks in the future, or, and I know you're really excited for this, Sam, they might pick a wide receiver.
I think it makes sense for them. I would actually be nervous if they take a wide receiver, to be quite honest with you, because they need a wide receiver desperately. I mean, Deshaun Jackson missed the whole entire year because he was too inconsiderate to get surgery when they told him to get it. Alshon Jeffrey wants a trade. He's probably going to get traded to somewhere like New England, I think, personally. I don't know. They could also go cornerback because all of their free agents this year are cornerbacks except for I don't even know Ronald Darby. Not even Ronald Darby. Sidney Jones is their only non-free agent cornerback that they have on the team. So, I mean, think about it. They need to sign their cornerbacks back. Jalen Mills is good, but he's nothing spectacular. And they got absolutely burned this year, the Philadelphia secondary. So I think that they could go with someone like Christian Fulton out of LSU. And the thing about Fulton that I'm not too sure about is that he was supposed to be the number one cornerback this year before Jeff Okudah, but when he mattered most, Fulton got absolutely burned by T. Higgins in the championship game. Like, it wasn't a good look for Fulton at all.
We still have pro days. We still have a little bit of time before the draft, but I do think that some of these corners and safeties who had okay to not great combines and then also played, especially that LSU defense that played against Oklahoma and Clemson, one of the two better offenses in the country, I think that that secondary, they're really good. But I think that they got kind of exposed in those two games, and then none of them, I thought, had a very good combine. So the pro days, I think, are going to be very important for some of the defensive backs. All that said, if you draft an LSU secondary guy, it's DBU. Like, I don't think that there's any argument that they are the best secondary units coming year after year. So if you get an LSU secondary player, I immediately am going to chalk him up to either being a starter or a guy that's going to be starting in this league for a while once he breaks into the rotation.
That's fair. No, that's fair, but could you make I know that you think LSU is DBU, but I'd like to make the argument that over the last 5 years, I think Ohio State is DBU.
That's
right
fine.
Now, but that's just me.
That's fine. You can put Ohio State in that conversation.
I definitely agree. For a really long time, LSU was considered the DBU before Florida started taking it over.
I still stand by my take that if you draft a LSU secondary player, they're going to be in the league for a while. They're going to make an impact. No matter where they go, no matter what franchise they go to, if you draft an LSU secondary player and they go to the Browns or Jacksonville or literally anywhere, they're going to make an impact immediately on your franchise. And I think that that's very special. I think that's a unique talent to have.
And I would definitely agree with you, but I'm not really sold on Grant Delpit, to be honest with you. A lot of people like him, but that's the one player I'm not sold on out of all of the LSU cornerbacks this year, or safeties secondary. I'm not sold on him, to be quite honest with you. I don't know. There's something about him. I just don't like him.
That's fair.
At all. I think that he struggles a lot making tackles, kind of tackles like a cornerback. His interceptions were, you can't really base people off their interceptions, to be quite honest with you, but I wasn't fascinated with him.
All right, and I completely skipped over this team, but Washington has the number 2 overall pick. It kind of feels like it's locked up at this point that they're going to take Chase Young. I'm going to give you the hard task of talking me out of taking Chase Young at the number 2 overall pick.
Okay, all right, hear me out. This would be scary for the NFC East. What if they flip Dwayne Haskins to the Dolphins, acquire Josh Rosen, and draft Tua, so that way they have Josh Rosen finds his third team in 3 years, sits behind as a backup just in case, and then you draft Tua in case his injury is a concern, but I don't really think that's an issue. And then you have your franchise quarterback. I'm not really sold on Dwayne Haskins on the Redskins. I don't think the front office is sold on Haskins. It was more of Dan Snyder telling him to draft Dwayne Haskins and take a quarterback this year. He showed flashes of being good towards the end of the year, but the Dolphins don't have to waste their 5th pick on drafting someone like Tua now, and they could go for another offensive position or another defensive position in the top 5. Maybe they land Isaiah Simmons if the Giants don't choose to draft them, and then they're doing a lot better. But, I could definitely see Tua going to the Redskins and then the Redskins making a move because they need to get relevant again, and I'm not sold on Dwayne Haskins. That's
fair. That's a good take. So does that mean that Chase Young is still going to be a top 5 pick? Because I think that no matter what, I thought that he probably, if Joe Burrow didn't have the season that he was going to have this year, I thought Chase Young was going to be the number 1 overall pick.
I would definitely agree with you on that. And I thought he was going to be the number 1 overall pick too this year. And he definitely should be the number 1 overall pick, but the Bengals need a quarterback because Andy Dalton and Ryan Finley are not cutting it whatsoever in Cincinnati, unless Cincinnati wants to stay mediocre. But no, I definitely would like don't want Tua to go to the Redskins in particular because I think Tua is going to be great in the NFL. I really do. And I don't think he's going to be the best quarterback in the draft class this year, but I think he's going to be great, and I think he's going to be a competitor. And then the NFC East will have a run for their money in terms of quarterbacks because you would have Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, who might actually end up being better than what a lot of people have projected him. And you got Tua now, who's supposedly the best Alabama quarterback of all time.
So it's really interesting to me when we talk about Tua and we talk about the Redskins, because I think that for the longest time the Redskins haven't had that quarterback, and getting that guy would make a huge impact, make an immediate impact. I do still think that Chase Young is the more impactful player, though, don't you?
I would definitely agree so too. Chase Young is a generational talent. If you look up Chase Young's NFL comparison, he's filthy, Chase Young. And I loved watching him this year at Ohio State when he played. 16 and a half sacks this year is pretty ridiculous for not even playing a full 16 games. And if you look at his prospect grade, he's considered a perennial All-Pro, with his NFL comparison being Julius Peppers. So that's a pretty great NFL comparison because Julius Peppers is a Hall of Famer in my opinion.
This was the point I wanted to make about Tua. I just remembered. There's a big difference between being the best rookie quarterback and being the best quarterback out of a draft class, right? I think that Tua has the chance to be the best quarterback out of this draft class, but I agree with you. I don't think that he's going to be the best player in this rookie class. I think that he's going to have a lot of work to do. I think the Redskins still have a long way to go to get an offensive line around him, to get some weapons around him. I think that if we look at him and Burrow, when we look back on year 5 of their careers, I think Tua will have the chance to edge him out. But the first 5 years, I think Burrow is set up much better in Cincinnati.
I would definitely agree with you for where he's set up in terms of being the Redskins organization right now is kind of in a dumpster fire. And I mean, Cincinnati is too, but at least when you go to Cincinnati, you get AJ Green. You go to Redskins, you get an old Adrian Peterson. So you got to think about it like that. But it would definitely be nice to see Tua not go to the Redskins, but it would be great for NFL news and draft coverage if he did go to the Redskins. So I guess it's a win-lose situation.
All right, Sam, what other surprises could you expect out of this first round? What other sleepers could you see sneaking in on an NFC East team?
I could see the Eagles possibly moving up in the draft. I know we said they might move out, but we could definitely see them move up with a team like the Denver Broncos and select Henry Ruggs and overlap the Cowboys possibly if they were choosing to go to a wide receiver. We could definitely see the Dallas Cowboys trade back with someone like the Baltimore Ravens who are interested in Laviska Shenault Jr. and another wide receiver to help out Lamar Jackson. And you move back, you get an extra second-round pick. And then most likely someone like Xavier McKinney or Grant Delpit will still be there at number 28 or 27. So that's not the end of the world. I think we could see a lot of trade backs, but we could also see a lot of trade up. Maybe Washington also trades with someone like the Redskins. The Dolphins trade with the Redskins possibly if they feel that the hysteria is in the air, that they're going to select Tua, and they really want Tua, and they flip the 5th and the 18th pick, and now the Redskins got an extra first-round pick to work with because the Redskins don't have a second-round pick this year, so that extra first-round pick really goes a long mile, and they could definitely put a lot of teams in hysteria for sure, the Redskins, so they control a lot of power, and so do the Giants. The Giants do control a lot of power at number 4. Someone like Jacksonville really wants Isaiah Simmons. They can move up, and the Giants can move back in the draft and select an offensive tackle because they're not going to go anywhere. But I don't know. I feel like the NFC East is definitely the one team this year in the draft who has a lot of draft leverage over other teams in the NFL.
Very interesting stuff. All right, NFC North next week with Sam. Sam, be on your toes because you know NFL news is going to break between now and then. We got the CBA coming up. Real quick, do you think they sign it before the time, or pretty much before the deadline? Do you think they sign this new CBA?
I hope not.
Okay. All right, Sam, thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for checking out the show. We have a lot of good content out so far this week. We did the AL West with Brendan Snow. That's already out. And, of course, you're going to want to check out Television Tuesday. That's out as well, talking about the Bachelor finale. So that's a lot of fun. Also, Friday, we're doing NL East. Who do we expect to come out of the division? I like the Braves, but it could be the defending champion Nationals. So you're going to want to listen for that. Thanks again to Sam for coming on. Thanks again to you guys for checking out the podcast. We're everywhere now, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever you get your podcast, we're there for you. So there's no excuse not to check us out, no excuse not to share the content. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.